In this video, you're going to learn how to write a class and how to create objects of that class. Before we get into what that means, I'm just going to run this example so you can see what it does, and then we'll start to talk about the code. So you can see we've got two cars driving across the screen, moving at different speeds, and they're different colors. So going back to the code, we have something called a class here, and it's for the cars. So a class is a custom data type, and it has properties for the data, and it has functions or actions. So in our car example, we have properties of cars, the color of the car, the speed of the car, where it is, the X and Y position of where the car is. So those are our four properties. And then we have actions like moving to the right. So whenever we write a class, we always start with the word class and then the name of the class that we're writing. And we'd like to start that with a capital letter to indicate that this is the name of a class. It will work if you don't use a capital letter, but it's just good programming practice and convention to use a capital letter. We also make sure that the name is singular, not plural. Even though we have more than one car, we could make lots and lots of cars, we make this singular, and that's just our convention that we use. So we have our car class, and the first thing that we do whenever we write a class is we create what's called a constructor. A constructor is like a special kind of function, and it sets the starting values for the properties. So we always name it constructor like this, and then we usually have some parameters. Usually we have one parameter for each property. And we use those parameters to set the properties. So the properties, you can tell when something is a property when it says this dot in front of it. So we know that color, CLR, is a property of a car because it says this dot color. Same thing with speed. That's another property because we wrote this dot speed. And same for X and Y. So we're setting our properties on the left here to equal our parameters on the right-hand side of our equations. You'll notice with color, I just happened to choose CLR for both the name of my parameter and the name of my property. That's fine because we can distinguish between the two by this dot. For speed, I used S and speed. Again, it's fine. They don't have to match. The name of the parameter doesn't have to match the name of the property. And then I use X start and Y start because this is the starting position of the car. But we know from the animation it's going to be moving, so our X position is not going to stay the same the whole time during this animation. But this is going to be setting our starting position for the X. So the constructor is just setting our properties. Then we get into our functions. So I don't really consider the constructor a function, even though it's kind of like one. We generally consider it a little bit different. But our functions are for our actions. So of course we need to be able to draw our car so we can see it in our animation. So we have a function called drawCar. Notice that when I'm writing a function in a class, I don't write the word function before the name of the function. I just write the name of it. You can add parameters to functions in a class. This one doesn't happen to have parameters, but if I needed to, I could add some in here in the parentheses. All right, so drawing my car, I'm setting the fill, and then I'm using the color property. So this dot color, same as I set up here, and that's going to set it to be the appropriate color. Then I'm drawing my rectangle for the body of the car using the X and Y properties. So the rectangle will be drawn wherever the X and Y is set to, and then drawing the wheels again using the X and Y properties of the car. Our second function is for moving to the right. So we know the cars have to move across the screen. They're moving to the right. To do that, we have to change our X position. So this dot X equals that changes our x position to our current x position plus our speed. So the bigger the speed is, the more the x position is going to change each time I tell the car to move to the right. All right, so this is our class, and this is all very generic. You'll notice that when we make our constructor, we don't actually know what the color or the speed or the x and y starting positions are. We're just saying that those things need to be set. So to actually make one of our cars, we come over here to this main tab. So you'll notice I've put this car class in the second tab. We usually want to leave our main tab with our setup and draw functions like we're used to. Any extra classes that you write, you just create a new tab by clicking on the plus button right here. All right, so we've got our setup function and our draw function. And our draw function has to be in there because our picture is changing over time. It's not just static, so we do need a draw function. So we've got our two global variables, red car and purple car. So remember from the animation, we have our red car and our purple car. So we've got a variable for each one. And in setup, we are actually creating the cars. So when we do this new car, this is calling our constructor to create a new car. And we've got parameters here for the color. So this is another way to make a color. You can just write color and then put the red, green, blue values in here. So we've got our color, our speed, and our starting x and starting y position. The order here matters. It needs to match the order that I put them in here. So color, speed, x start, y start, color, speed, x start, y start. Same thing for my purple car, calling the constructor using the keyword new, and then the name of my class right here, color, speed, x start, y start. So you'll notice the speed of my purple car is 3, whereas the speed of the red car is 2. That's how I'm getting the purple car to go faster in the animation. All right, so that just creates the cars. If that was the only code I had, I wouldn't actually see anything on the screen. It's not drawing them, it's not moving them. To do the drawing and the moving, I'm going to look in my draw function here. And the first thing I do is I set the background, so that will cover up any previous cars that I may have drawn on my screen. Then I tell it to draw the red car. So this is a new way to call a function. I can't just write draw car. If I did that, the computer wouldn't know which car it's supposed to draw. Is it supposed to draw the red car or is it supposed to draw the purple car? So I have to write which car and then dot and then the name of my function. So whenever we call a function in a class, we write the name of our variable and then dot and the name of the function. So this will draw my red car. This line draws the purple car. And then to get them to move right, I similarly have to call the move right function for each one. So if I didn't do this, I'm just going to comment these out so you can see my cars just sit there. They're being drawn over and over again, but they're not moving. So we have to tell the computer to move the cars. So when we do move right for red car, it runs this move right code and it uses the x position of the red car, not the purple one. It just knows, since we said red car.move right, then this .x is going to refer to the x position of the red car. This .speed refers to the speed of the red car, which remember we set up here in our constructor, and we set it to 2. All right, so to review, our class is in a separate tab. We start it with the words class, the name of the class we're writing. We have a constructor that sets the properties, and then we have functions for the actions. Then in our main tab, we create variables. we call our constructor, and then we can call our functions. One other vocabulary word to learn with this is that these variables are kind of a special kind of variable that we call an object. So whenever we make a variable that uses a class, so we're calling the constructor for the class, we say that that variable is an object of the class. So red car is an object of the car class.